Hi there, and welcome to the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County's regular Facebook Live broadcast. Today is April the 5th, and I hope that you had a great Easter weekend. The weather has been lovely. Maybe you'll just wait a few moments to see if anybody joins us today. My name is Erica Rice, and I will be talking about living safely. So last time on our Facebook Live, which was on March 22nd, I talked about living safely with dementia and focusing on living in the community. So today I will be talking about safety around the house and around the yard. So if you were like me this weekend, you took advantage of this great weather and the start of spring to get out and do some yard cleanup and start doing some spring cleaning, all those things that kind of get us revved up for the summertime. So, there's risk for everybody when we go out and we, get up and wash windows or use the rototiller to prepare the garden or I'll do all those kinds of tasks. But when you're living with dementia, you are living with increased risk. So if you watch our Facebook Live broadcasts, 2 broadcasts ago, so this would be on March the 8th, I believe, I talked about those symptoms of dementia. And when you're living with a neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's disease, or maybe vascular dementia or frontotemporal dementia, they all increase risk because they are causing brain changes. And some of those changes will lead to more risk in these kinds of activities. Things like decreased judgment, trouble with problem solving, not recognizing sensory information. All of these things make these activities more risky. So when you're thinking about just around the house and the yard, because that's what I've been thinking about this weekend as I've been getting out in this great weather. So I was out doing washing the windows. So I was washing the windows outside, which required me to, get up on a ladder and wash the windows and get them all dried and cleaned and everything. But that requires me to, first of all, have good judgment to know, is this safe for me to do so? Am I putting the ladder on some even ground so that it's nice and steady? Do I have someone around to kind of, spot me in case something happens? How high on the ladder can I go? So all of these things are the process that we normally do to say, okay, this is a risky activity, but how am I going to manage the risk? Can I manage some of those variables to make this activity a bit less risky? And when you're living with dementia, you might not be able to think through all of those things and manage that risk. So, if you're supporting somebody living with dementia, it's thinking about where are the changes that you're seeing and how can you support these activities? Whereas before you might have said, that's great, you're washing the windows, you go do that, I'll do my thing. But now you might want to have it be an activity that you do together, like I will sit here and hand you the cloth and the squeegee and, you do this, or however you manage it, but that you're working together as a team. So trying to put in more practices in place to keep those kinds of activities a little less risky. Another kind of thing, like this weekend, I was out raking the lawn as everybody else in my neighborhood was out doing. And my neighbor took pity on me and he offered to lend me his electric dethatcher, which is really great. It was much faster than raking it by hand. But he even made sure, and I'm not living with dementia, but as he was giving me the tutorial of how to work this machine, and he was concerned about my eye safety. So he said, I have a pair of goggles that you can use and put on top of your glasses because I don't want anything to, hit you in the eyes. Or make sure that the cord, because it's an electric one with the cord, make sure the cord is over on this side so that you don't run over the cord. Like he was trying to manage the risk. And that's what we're doing when we're thinking about how do we manage the risk around the yard. It's really about looking out for each other. How can I help you manage this risk? If somebody's living with dementia, maybe they need more help managing that kind of risk. But it's as neighbors, what can I do to help you out? I see that you're working on your yard. Can I give you a hand? As a family member, you don't want people to stop doing these things because these are things that give us meaning and purpose in life. But how can we support somebody living with dementia so that they can keep doing these kinds of activities? Some other things about getting out in the house and yard. It was a beautiful weekend, And we can be outside for long periods of time and not recognize that, I've been out here for a long time. Am I wearing sun protection? Am I getting enough hydration? So as we get older, we actually don't recognize thirst as much as we did when we were younger, and that's just the normal part of aging. But when you're living with dementia, you might have an even harder time recognizing that I'm thirsty. So just making sure that if somebody's out working in the garden, getting the garden prepared for the summer or whatever they're doing, that you're making sure that they're getting enough hydration regularly, because they might not recognize themselves that they need to take a break, take a drink, and make sure that they have their sunscreen on and things like that. So those are some things around the yard when we're looking at spring cleaning, yard cleanup. Are they using power tools? Lawnmower is often a question I get from many family members. My husband wants to get out and mow the lawn, but I'm concerned because the risk is increasing. So what can I do with that? So these things, again, it's all about, well, what is the risk? What has changed? How can we step in and manage the risk? If somebody is living with people who can be around to help out and keep an eye out, it's easier to manage that risk. If you're supporting somebody who's living on their own, then that becomes a little harder. So these are things that are hard to really talk about in a Facebook Live broadcast. But certainly our staff team, when they're working with families, can talk about these specific situations. Because everybody's situation is different. Like some people have lots of friends and neighbors around that help out. Some people don't. So it's how do you work with your situation to help keep people safe? So think about, what's their normal routine this time of year? What do they like to get out and do? What are they going to be thinking about? I have to get out and rototill the garden. I have to get out and wash the windows. Because they might not have the judgment to say that how do I do that safely any longer? So it's thinking about what's changing with dementia and how can we support people to live safely. Another big change around the house is, if thinking about safety at home, is that there's a risk of falls. So looking at the home environment to see that, are there any fall hazards? And thinking about outside, are there loose branches? I know there's, like for myself, there's the top step of my deck is loose, so that's a fall hazard. Maybe there's some bricks that have come up over the winter that might be a tripping hazard. So taking a look around the property to see what might be a fall hazard, what might somebody trip over, what do we need to clean up, is there debris in the pathway that we need to get out of the way? So thinking about that fall risk. And certainly around the house too is how do we manage the environment to decrease that risk of falls. Removing scatter rugs. So scatter rugs are a big fall risk, easy to trip over. And when you have changes in visual perception, people are more prone to, for example, miss a step. So making sure that there's things like handrails down the stairs so that people can hang onto that handrail and get down those steps safely. Grab bars in the shower, all of those things to help manage fall risk. One thing that our local health integration network often does, the home and community care, is to go and do an assessment of somebody's home and look at that fall risk and make some recommendations of things that people can do in their environment to help manage that risk. Okay, so that's a number of things around the house. Some other things about fall risk, we're thinking about medication and medication safety. As we get older, often we get more and more medications prescribed to us, and there's a lot of instructions of how to take those medications properly, take them at a proper time. This one you take in the morning, this one you have to take with food. That's a lot to take control of or to be on top of if you're living with dementia. Again, if somebody has someone living with them full time, oftentimes they can manage this risk okay because their care partner is there to make sure that things are happening properly. When somebody's living alone, though, this becomes a much riskier situation. So how do we help people make sure that they're getting their medications and taking their medications properly? Because if they're not taking them properly, it can cause things like dizziness, which could cause a fall. So when we're talking about decreasing that fall risk, looking at the medications is part of looking at the whole environment and seeing if there are ways that we can help people take their medications properly making sure that there's no medications that might be making them dizzy or increasing that fall risk. Also, think about lighting. So proper lighting around the house, so outside of the house, making sure that there's proper lighting in the entryways and garage, wherever you might enter the house. And around the house, making sure that the hallways are properly lit, different living areas are properly lit, so that people can see where they're going, where that step is, so that they have the best chance possible of getting from point A to point B without tripping over something, falling over something. So that lighting is a big part of making the home environment safe. Now think about health. So it's an important part of living well with dementia to make sure that we're healthy. So making sure that people are getting regular checkups, that they're getting regular med reviews, talking to doctors about medications, but also pharmacists are great resources for medication. You can go and have a medication review with the pharmacist, make sure that everything is proper, that there aren't any medications that might be causing any issues that you might be seeing. So looking at that, making sure that people are eating a proper diet. So a proper healthy diet is good for your brain health. We talk a lot about Mediterranean diet as being specifically a very good diet for brain health, and that is a diet that's has lots of colorful fruits and vegetables, lean cuts of meat, lots of fish, olive oil, and legumes, and like not a lot of sugar, very little red meat. So we want to get rid of that kind of food and have more of the fish and chicken and vegetables and things like that into our diet, healthy oils. The other thing, regular physical activity. So as when you're living with dementia, making sure that you are getting out and moving, and that helps also to keep the body strong and going, but also it helps keep the blood pumping to the brain, which is important for brain health. So we want to make sure that we're getting people out and active, but we want to make sure that we're supervising that people aren't getting dehydrated or that there's a fall risk in what the activity that they're doing. But we don't want people to stop getting out and being active and doing things they enjoy doing. So let's say if somebody really has loved gardening their whole life, how do we manage that activity so that they can continue getting out there into the garden and doing the things that they love doing, getting active, getting some fresh air, but minimizing the risk. So that's another important part about living safely with dementia, is maintaining that healthy lifestyle. So when you think about what you can do, because there's a lot of things, as I mentioned, when you're living with dementia and you're living with brain change, that everyday activities that do have levels of risk that we are easily able to manage when we don't have dementia. When we're living with dementia, that risk level goes up. And so how do we manage that risk? How do we make adaptations to help the person continue doing the activities that they enjoy doing, that bring meaning and purpose, that contribute to the healthy lifestyle, and continue managing the risk? So there's a great resource, and I know I mentioned it last Facebook Live. It has a lot of great suggestions around safety at home as well, and that is findingyourwayontario.ca. So findingyourwayontario.ca. You can go there for a lot of different strategies. And also at the Alzheimer's Society. So if you are struggling with a specific situation and you want to talk to somebody about that situation, to give us a call, to contact us. Our phone number is 705-722-1066. I know the staff team is off today for Easter Monday, but starting tomorrow, again, you can always leave a message and it will be returned, but you can call into the office. We'll be back again tomorrow. So it's great to, reach out and say, this is the situation and I need some help to strategize how I can keep my family members safe. And we are more than happy to be there to help you out. In our next Facebook Live, so we do this every second Monday. Last Facebook Live and today I've been talking about managing risk and living safely in the community and at home. But I've had a request to get back to basics and talk about specific types of dementia. So I talk about dementia, and dementia is that umbrella term that describes brain changes that occur when somebody's living with a neurodegenerative disease. But the diseases that cause those brain changes, Alzheimer's being the most common, but there are many other types of different diseases. So I've had a request to break that down and talk more about those specific diseases. So the next Facebook Live, which is 2 Mondays from now, I'll start off with the most common. I'll talk about just what is Alzheimer's disease, what's happening in the brain when somebody has Alzheimer's, what's the typical progression of Alzheimer's, and so it's your chance to ask questions, and then we'll get into some of the other more common types of dementia after that. So I hope that you are able to get out and enjoy this gorgeous day. Maybe get out and do some yard work, but do it safely. Again, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out, and you can also message us here on our Facebook page. I try my best to get back to people within a day when they send a question looking for more information. So please feel free to do that as well. All right, and have a good day. I hope to see you next time.